We pull up to the place, and it's this huge 100,000 square foot retail. And we go into the Ashley, because my wife and daughter have to use the bathroom, and my wife goes to use the bathroom, and my daughter's jumping on one of the bunk beds. And I say, hey, daddy and mommy are buying this building, right? And my daughter's 7 and she's 6 at the time. She's just jumping around the bed and, yeah, right. She tells me, yeah, right. And I'm like, what do you mean, yeah, right? And I go, daddy and mommy are gonna buy this building. She goes, no, you're not, silly. And I said, well, honey, why do you think daddy and mommy can't buy this building? And she goes, because it's too much money, silly. And this is a 6-year-old who has no idea what the value of money is. But somehow they connected that this big building was too expensive for mommy and daddy to buy. This was an inherent belief she had. Nobody told her, she doesn't know shit about real estate, but this was the belief she had. And boy, how proud I felt at that moment. Like, I'm gonna be able to tell my kids that we own buildings.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm excited today. We have a special guest, Sean Martin. He is a healthcare entrepreneur, the founder of Real Mentors, a commercial real estate investor, and most importantly, a husband and father of 2 awesome kids. Welcome, Sean. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Graham, Jesse. Appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. So give us a little bit of backstory for the people who don't know who you are about just, a little bit of your story and how you got into the real estate world.
Yeah, sure. I'm just a kid from Parkside Projects in the Bronx, New York. We're actually shooting this pod from the South Bronx, staying true to our roots and our nature. So as a city guy, being raised, by a single mother, in a not so great environment during the 1990s crack epidemic, which swept through the city and the country, and any kind of vulnerable communities. Saw some really ugly things happen during that time. That was the backdrop for me being raised, and fortunately, through a strong single mom with a great work ethic and a lot of love, I was able to navigate a lot of the challenges that growing up in that environment presented. I was able to not necessarily thrive, but navigate some of those dangerous waters. And I learned some valuable lessons along the way. I did find myself as a music student in high school because I took to the saxophone, and that ended up being a saving grace for me. Because of that extracurricular activity and practice, there was less time for me to entertain the nonsense that was going on in the streets. And when I did entertain the nonsense going on in the streets, I had my mother to come swoop in and rescue me, or talk to some of the older guys in the neighborhood to get their grasp off of me. So that was really a very important time in my life, because in my late 20s, despite being college educated, despite having made 6 figures, which is a good living by anybody's standards, in particular where I come from, I found myself still straddling a lot of the belief systems of the street. And despite working, I was also hustling, doing things that weren't legal. And at the age of 29, I found myself in prison for 2 years. And that was really, really the smack on the butt that God needed to give to me to get me to realize that I was wasting my talents, my God-given gifts, and all of the potential that I had to do good for myself and my family and those that I love. And when I got home from that 2-year experience at accelerated education, right? We went backwards. There was a focus on building a life. And I had my now wife who stuck with me through that ordeal. I met her less than a year before going away. I was able to learn emotional intelligence and some of the things that led up to me putting myself in that place. And then more importantly, during my time, I used it to my advantage. I read over 200 books. I picked up all the classics, and I dictated what my life would look like when I came home. And I did that in black and white composition notebooks like we had when we were kids in school. And the cool part about that, to bring it full circle, is one of the things I had in there was I would be a successful commercial real estate investor And then I wrote down how much money I would have invested and how much money I would make on a monthly basis as a result of my investments. Fast forward 17 years later, and we're having this conversation, obviously, because I've done something in that space, but it just speaks to the power of belief. And all the things that I've learned in my life up to that point, and obviously now, is that if you don't believe that you're capable of doing something, you have absolutely no chance. So despite coming home, having a wife, well, my now wife waiting for me, and having all these big goals and dreams, I was still kind of dilly-dallying, not necessarily being my best self. And still putting that half measure out there, I was able to create a multi-million-dollar a year medical supply business. And I did that through leveraging my true gift, which is people, relationships, networking. I really am nothing special outside of my ability to connect with other human beings. And I think that speaks to your audience. And this was part of my concern when we did the intro call for this session was, well, how do I measure up against, more knowledgeable real estate minds? And what I think I can bring to the table that they can't is the absolute power of belief, and how not knowing how you're going to get there is almost irrelevant to some point. Because the first thing you have to solidify within yourself is belief. And I always knew I was meant for more. I always knew I was meant for greater things, even since I was a younger kid in this ugly environment. And I had no idea I was going to get there. But damn it, we got there. And that's part of the cool part of my story, that I think people that kind of desire for more but don't know how they're going to get it, that's my crowd. That's who I want to impact. Those are the people I want to speak to and say, don't give up that hope, because that's the end all be all. If you don't have that, you don't have any chance of making it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love how you said, like, I'm going to write this down and this is exactly what I'm going to go out and accomplish. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, you can have all these goals, but you need to write them down. And getting that notebook out and writing down exactly what it is, and then kind of seeing it, I think, on paper is like, okay, this is actually kind of real. Like, I can go through this for sure. And that's awesome.
That's a process of you. It's an internal conversation. You have an idea. We have thoughts all day long, right? Uncontrollable thoughts. Then we have some good ones in there, and then they become ideas. And those ideas, you ever have a dream, you wake up to use the bathroom, you remember what you dreamt about, and then you forget it, because that's all of our thoughts. And unfortunately, that's a lot of our dreams and ideas and hopes. They get lost because we don't take the time to just write them down. Writing them down makes it real. Speaking it out loud makes it even more real. And then telling someone else makes it something if you're a person of integrity, you want to live up to what you just said. So writing it down is, I don't know any successful person, highly successful, that hasn't taken the time to write down the things that they've wanted to obtain or accomplish.
That's so cool. Your story is very inspiring. So it's awesome to see, where you've come from, all of that, and kind of the lessons you learned. I'm sure we could go, into depth on all kinds of different lessons you learned, but I guess walk us through how somebody goes from, that environment, and then, the unfortunate circumstances that happened, to having that mindset that you're talking about now, having the belief in yourself. And like, what are some of the things somebody can do to actually get there?
Put yourself in an uncomfortable position. First and foremost, I think the easiest thing that anybody, male, female, young or old, can do, if you're not in a position where you're testing yourself physically, I think that can be the entry-level gateway, or the door that you first walk through, to give yourself the confidence that you're going to need to do the harder things that life is going to present. So I'm not saying you have to be physically fit even. I'm not saying you have to be jacked or, a model. But by pushing yourself physically, you're having a conversation in your mind to not give up. There's nobody in the history of treadmill walks that didn't want to get off, admitted into it, but they had to talk themselves into staying on that treadmill or lifting that next rep. And I think that fitness, or any kind of physical activity, is the entry-level thing that anybody from anywhere at any age could be doing to move themselves forward. And it's not just literally, but figuratively. you're now working towards something else. And in order to get to that place, you have to do something hard. You have to challenge yourself. And I think the first step is getting uncomfortable. And you don't realize it when you're a kid. You're learning these lessons. If you're blessed enough to have been participating in any level of sports as a kid, you know that you have to show up for practice. If you want to get better, you have to do the same things over and over again. And I think we lose that. You know, a lot of us go to school, then we go to work, and then it becomes a routine, a box that someone else put together for us in order to further their goals, not ours. And I think at some point, people get lost in that box because it's laid out for them. It's safer, but at the same time, they're dying inside. And again, this doesn't apply to everybody. Don't take my words out of context. If you love what you do, you truly love your career and you love showing up to that position, God bless you. But I know there's a ton of people that just go to work because they have to provide, and it's like a death spiral. And it's killing you on the inside. It's killing that fire that you had at some point to do something more. It doesn't have to be something that you're doing as a living, but I mean, maybe a side hustle, maybe a passion project. There's something other than what everybody's doing at the moment that they'd rather be doing. And if you could tap into that, you're in a great place.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. You know, if you look at most of the, maybe not all of them, but the majority of the more successful entrepreneurs, I think having some level of physicality is very important, or consistent routine exercise. I think that's great. So walk us through how you went from, you know, everything you just told us about into real estate. How did you get connected? You know, you said you wrote it down that you wanted to be a commercial real estate investor, but what, you know, how did you actually get into commercial real estate investing?
I got uncomfortable. I put myself in the rooms that I had no idea what I was getting into. I took a dive into Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership at the end of 2022. I had never been to any kind of event like that. I went to his Unleash the Power Within event in Palm Beach, 10,000 maniacs. It was like a concert for self-development. It was insane. I mean, within the first 12 hours, you're walking on 1,200-degree hot coals. And their goal is to sell you different packages that they have as part of Tony's educational, stratosphere or world. And there's a couple of different ones. And one is the virtual access, where I can, virtually access all of his content. And the second one was the in-person Platinum Partnership Mastermind, the most expensive mastermind that I'm aware of in the world. And I just so happened to be blessed enough to afford it. So I took a chance on myself. And I said, you know what? At that time in my life, I was extremely unhappy, despite having wealth, despite having a successful company, despite just having our second child. My marriage wasn't the best. I just didn't have the tools, because I had graduated from a certain belief system and way of life to a different way of life, a different level of living, where the necessities were taken care of. Money was no longer an issue. We were blessed enough to have a medical company that generated, millions of dollars a year, and we've been able to do very well. But I didn't have a plan like I did when I came home from prison, where I had 10 years laid out. This is what I want to do with my life. I had reached all that stuff and didn't have anything more to reach, or so I thought. I entered this Platinum Partnership. I'm unhappy with all these wonderful things that I have. And this just shifted the narrative for me. Be happy with what you have while you strive for what you want. We have everything we need right now, today, as is, to be happy, fulfilled, and grateful. But are we viewing it that way? Within 6 months of turning my faith over and getting over that fear and joining this expensive partnership, I went to an event called Date with Destiny, put a lot of shift in my perspective. My marriage started to turn. My relationship with my kids started to turn. My relationship, more importantly, with anything else, with myself, started to turn a corner. And on my second event, ironically enough, on my way to a Tony event, I run into my now real estate partner on a layover in Chicago at O'Hare. The flight going to Sun Valley, Idaho got canceled due to weather. on the line, I end up meeting this guy through another member of the community. He's like, yeah, come stay with me. We got a condo downtown and you guys can spend the night with me. And I'm like, well, that's very generous. I just met you. And it turns out that was not happenstance. That was preordained. About 7 months go by. Me and this person got to know each other a lot more intimately as human beings, as people. He got to meet my family. I got to meet his and see his place and vice versa. And we decided to go into business with each other. And this person is a seasoned commercial real estate investor. This is what they do. And I just so happened to have the best year of my career with my medical supply business and said, you know what? Let me take another chance on myself. I'm getting used to this, taking a chance on myself, taking my winnings and kind of reinvesting them. But instead of reinvesting them in anything, I'm reinvesting them in myself. And now this opportunity to become a commercial real estate investor presents itself. And I jump at it because I've got the right person presenting the opportunity to me. And it wasn't even something that they presented to me so much as, hey, what do you do? Hey, I'd be interested in learning more about that. And their retail, space, which we're familiar with because we share some of the same rooms, Graham. Retail, commercial retail, triple net lease. And I was just blown away and fascinated by the tax incentives. More than anything else, as a Northeast guy, a New York City guy, I've got a partner. It's called the United States government and the state of New York. I got a partner that doesn't do a damn thing, and they're entitled to 40% on the dollar of everything I bring in. And it hurts. After a while, it hurts because if you factor in all the taxes and fees, it's like, you ever read your cable bill or your utility bill? Taxes just go on and they just chip away. You're earning, if you're blessed enough to be in the top tax bracket and you're from one of these Northeast states or California, the government or governmental taxation is benefiting more from your hard work than you are. And it was fascinating for me to learn about triple net lease, how we could be hands-off, how we could benefit from a structure that's already in place with somebody who's already been successful. And I can dive into this industry. Let's say it's a 100-story building and I'm getting in on the 50th floor. And I'm getting in on the 50th floor without taking the bumps and the bruises. And I'm at a place where most people would love to end up. And that's where I'm fortunate enough to start. So fast forward a little, I go into commercial real estate rooms, and now I'm learning all of the other ways that you can do creative financing, other ways you can slice that pie up and carve it up and get creative and seller financing. And now the wheels are just turning. So essentially an opportunity presents itself. I have the cash flow to invest in it, but that's just the beginning. That thing's on autopilot. Now I'm meeting gentlemen like yourself and others from the community that we know, and I'm really getting to learn the inner workings of how deals are made, how they're found, and what it takes to close a solid deal. And then also with great mentors that we have in the room, we see that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're not going to just get there in a year or two. It's going to take a decade or two to make some serious dents. And you're going to hit mostly singles and base hits. But you know what? Doubles, triples, and the occasional home run will come across your desk too. But you have to be in it. And through good fortune, investing and taking a chance on myself, the universe and God presented this opportunity for me. And I'm wise enough to know nowadays that when an opportunity presents itself, it passes the sniff test, and then it passes the real test, which is my wife giving the sign off. Then I said, you know what? Let's take a chance on this opportunity. And that was my delve into commercial real estate. Quite unconventional. And I'd like to think unique, but just another way for people to understand that you don't need to know all the details. You just need to get in the game. Mm-hmm. However you can get in the game, and the rest will work itself out.
We've talked a lot about like just getting started. And so sometimes, you might not have all the answers up front, but you know enough, you have a mentor on your side, you take the risk and you go for it.
I mean, how many people don't get over that hump, that fear? Mm-hmm. You know, I heard it in the rooms too. It's like people been in the rooms for a year or two in other forms of real estate and haven't done anything with their first deal. And that's the reluctance to step into a scary place. The fear of failing is always the first thing people say. I always say the fear of success, because what does it look like to be a commercial real estate investor? What does it look like to own a strip mall? Holy shit, that sounds ambitious. Like you've been shopping there all your life, but there's a guy or a person or entity that owns this thing. Who am I to own this? Who am I to do these big things beyond my own imagination? And I think people just have a very, very hard time, unfortunately, getting over their own fears and doubts. And a lot of it comes from they don't know what's on the other side of that action. They don't know what success looks like. They don't know anybody who's successful like that. So it's hard for them to embrace the idea that they too can find success down that avenue, because it's always safer to walk a path someone's walked before you. And that's why it's important to go seek out the rooms. You're not going to necessarily find them in your geographic community.
I was going to say, we talk a lot about the right rooms, like and they may not be in the right geographical area. How do you find those right rooms?
It's usually through referrals, because once you get in a room, those people have been in the rooms. And the room sounds like this nondescript, imaginary place. Those rooms could be, you go to a real estate convention. I'm in New York City. You go to a real estate convention in one of the boroughs of New York City. Let's pick Queens or the Bronx. There's going to be 40 or 50 real estate professionals, many of which know each other, many of which think the same or tackle the same issues or come across the same obstacles. So there's not going to be a ton of creativity in terms of how to approach things. But if you go to a real estate convention in Vegas where people are coming from all over the country, now, in my humble opinion, you're getting a real diverse view, a bird's eye view of what the industry looks like and different ways that you can approach and tackle obstacles, as opposed to what people are used to in one small fraction of or segment of a population. Like New York City is a huge place, but most people face the same problems when it comes to a specific industry. So you're not going to get a lot of creativity. In our rooms, we are servicing for the commercial, real estate seminars that we go to. They're servicing almost every state in the union. There's deals being made there, and you got people, bringing deals from all over, and it's just a team mentality of analyzing and helping deals. And there's an insulated safety net of anybody who screws over anybody else on a deal is going to get 86 from that group, because we operate with integrity. And, that is something that I found to be very impressive. And I've actually heard and seen of them actually living up to that mantra, which is if you're around, you're going to find out. And people have found out and gotten kicked out. And I think that's great, because it protects the integrity of the rooms. And those rooms are usually, once you're in a room of any kind. For me, it was Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership, which is unrealistic for the majority of people. Let's be honest, it's a 6-figure commitment. It's not something everybody's going to be able to afford. But by being in that room, I'm now coming across 600 various individuals from all over the world, all different thought process, walks of life, career paths, and they're sharing information and knowledge that they learned from, let's say, a Dr. Joe Dispenza room, or a commercial real estate room, or a male leadership academy room, or a public speaking group room. So all of the masterminds and rooms that I've put myself in, with the exception of the first, Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership, was as a result of the relationships I've nurtured and had through those, meetups. And they'll tell me what they're doing, what book they're reading. And then, instantly I'm interested, because I know this person is of a certain caliber, and it's not going to waste my time if they recommend something to me and I go ahead and read it or check out that room. So finding a room is just a matter of finding one or two, and then the rest will start to present themselves. And you'll find some rooms that are better than others, some that offer more value than others. But you have to just, like you said, Jesse, just get in the game, just get started. Mm-hmm. There's no wrong way to start.
Nope.
Other than to not start.
That's awesome. So we're full transparency, we're in that beginning stage. I have some residential properties. Jesse has some residential properties, but we're under contract on our first commercial deal. And I've been doing brokerage for 6 years, commercial brokerage, but we actually now are in the position where we're buying a deal, closing in probably 30 days. But we're having,
Nice.
I find myself having those same thoughts of like, man, like, can we close this? Can we lease this building? Can we, get this done? Like it's like stuff I've seen people do over and over and over again, but it's just like hard to believe that it could happen for myself. So I understand what you're saying with that kind of like almost beginner mindset. It's hard to get over that for sure.
What you're looking for is always on the other side of what you're avoiding is a pretty, popular cliche these days on social and with self-development. And the minute you close that deal, boys, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
The minute you close that deal, all the other deals are going to be easier. I would imagine the first one is the hardest because of the mind shift and the mindset. Taking it back to when I started my own medical supply company, it was only through someone else screwing me out of a considerable amount of money that I had the courage to say, enough of this, I'm leaving, I'm starting my own company, I don't want to deal with this. The pain had become so great that I didn't want to deal with it anymore, and I ripped the Band-Aid off. The decision at that point was a $30,000 decision. Now I can make a $3 million decision with less doubt and hassle than I did the $30,000 decision 8 years ago when I started my company. And that's through confidence building, stacking wins, hitting those singles, getting on base through a walk. Doesn't matter. You're making progress, you're building confidence, you're building a resume, which not only tells the world what you're capable of, but more importantly, it tells you what you're capable of.
No, that's good. That's really good. Appreciate the encouragement. You spoke a little bit about retail shopping centers and triple net deals. What does most of your portfolio look like now? Is it heavy into retail or what? And also, where is it? Where's a lot of your stuff? Where are you guys buying?
Sure. Well, last year we went on a bit of a, for me, what we would consider a spending spree, being that I went from 0 to 60 in all of about 6 months. We've got multiple properties, all in the Midwest, spread through Illinois and Iowa, of all places. This kid from the Bronx, right? Go figure. We purchased a total of about 150,000 square feet combined. And it is a combination of commercial retail space, the likes of, Ashley Furniture Outlet, Hobby Lobby, Dollar Tree, and some of the bigger national chains that you're familiar with. And then we have smaller mom and pop, 8,000 square foot, 4-storefront retail space with a juice bar and a chiropractor and a physical trainer. And then we also do medical space. So we are mostly commercial retail, but we also love medical. And the reason being is it's an unfortunate reality, but we're not getting any healthier. Mm-hmm. And those are pretty secure tenants to have. If you're not in the retail space and choosing strategically, because remember, retail can be risky. And just to give you a story, one of our first deals that we were entertaining was a David's Bridal. And my attorney looked at the paperwork and they told me, hey, be careful. I just heard David's Bridal is probably going to be filing for bankruptcy in the next, short period of time. Sure enough, within 2 or 3 months, David's Bridal filed bankruptcy. So retail is not guaranteed. So you've got commercial real estate, which I now know falls under a couple of different umbrellas. You've got your 20 unit or more multifamily spaces, which we in our group qualify as commercial. You've got your industrial warehouse, cold storage, those kinds of things. You've got your office space, not relegated to just medical, but it could be any kind of office space. And then you've got your commercial retail space. I'm sure I'm missing something in there if you guys want to shed some light. But essentially, we chose the ones that we knew were going to be around for a while. And when I mention to people I'm in the commercial real estate space and they're not in the know, their first thing is, oh, well, office space it's on the outs right now. Like there's never been a bigger turn in office space, especially being in New York City. We have skyscrapers apparently sitting empty. And, the goal of a lot of the investors and the developers is to rezone them as mixed use or residential, even because they don't feel like a lot of that, work from home crowd is going to come back. And why should it? Because for the corporation, it's cheaper to have them work from home, and apparently it's more effective as well. So we try to focus on the things that aren't going to go belly up, like a big concern of mine, let's say a retail spot like a Best Buy. I might be putting my foot in my mouth, but I don't think Best Buy has a 20-year, outlook that's successful. That place is huge. It's absolutely humongous and unnecessary when anything you want, you can get online and have within a day or two. You can literally go check it out in a small store, order it online, and have it home. And I know that has been a shift in the way that they do business, but I would still have a hard time saying, yeah, that's a solid property for a person like myself or yourselves to get into at this point in your investing career, because to me, that's like Blockbuster. The writing's on the wall. It's only a matter of time. David's Bridal, same thing. So we try to focus on things we think and believe, and the data suggests are not going to go anywhere for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and people are working from home. And the way that I explain it to, people that are not familiar with commercial, I say, well, yes, commercial office space is definitely on the downswing. That presents its challenges. Although if you have the money and the means to to just hold and withstand the storm, that's going to be extremely valuable in, 8 to 10 years again, because everything turns around. But for us, the smaller players, we want to focus on things where all these work from home people have less time commuting now. So guess where they're going to go for a lunch break? They might go to their local shopping center. They might go, shopping on their lunch break. If it's 5 o'clock, they clock out. Now they have the convenience of not having gone to work and dealing with a strenuous commute. They can go straight out to eat with their family or straight shopping. So local shopping centers are actually on the upswing, from my understanding. And those are beautiful places to invest right now. And again, if you overthink it, you can always find a way not to invest or a reason that's not going to work. I think when it comes to people spending money, at least in the United States of America, that's something we just love to do. And, our neighborhood retail shopping, outlets are where we do it.
No, that's great. And kind of what you said, going back to talking about big box stores like Best Buy going out of business. So CityPlat, the company we work with, they have a pretty big portfolio, and their focus is small bay retail and small bay flex, like small bay retail being like little neighborhood centers, exactly what you're describing, without a massive anchor tenant. Because that way, if you have a 10,000 square foot retail center with 5 suites at 2,000 square feet, you might have like a pizza restaurant, a barbershop, nail salon, like, those like neighborhood center tenants, those probably are not going anywhere. And if they do go somewhere, then you have a pretty good chance of filling that pretty quickly with another small business. Same thing with the warehouses. So that's, I think that's a good point, that the bigger box stuff can be riskier.
Yeah, and I think that translated from my other business as well. We have accounts. We have, doctors' offices that refer to us, the durable medical equipment. And there are some bigger players. There's some busier doctors' offices, some bigger practices that can send us more volume and more work. And I've had some of those. I still have some of those. And they're great accounts to have. But if something goes wrong, you're going to feel it when you lose that account. So much of the same mindset to what we just discussed, which is if you got a couple of big whales and you lose one of them, you're hurting. But if you got a bunch of, minnows or, mom and pops, and one goes under, you're much more likely to weather that storm, to be able to cut the check for whatever you're losing, or maybe you're even breaking even if you've got a, 75% occupancy on the type of center that you just talked about.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it was something we need to address on the other side of it too, is when those do go belly up, the bigger whales, it presents an opportunity as well. Like I've been calling a lot of, vacant Family Dollars or other businesses that have recently gone out. Let's say a bigger shopping center has a larger Family Dollar in it. I'll call that shopping center and see if they want to sell. And we've gotten some that have, they've lost a lot of income, because for those who don't know, commercial real estate is, valued off the income. So if they lose a lot of income, now, they're going belly up and they're going to be interested in selling at a lower price. That's an opportunity for some of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that I learned is just the lease. The leases are what it doesn't only add cash flow, but it adds valuation to the property as a whole. And that was a real eye opener for me as a new investor, being blessed enough to get in at the level that I've gotten in. You know, we're doing secure properties, usually 90% or more occupied. So the bank will support it, as opposed to, lower occupancy tenants where you can get creative and go direct to the seller. There's obviously value in having the ability to go to a bank for the money as well. And it makes cap raise, a little easier, to say the least. But by diversifying your knowledge, you're giving yourself the best chance to win. And, some people have niche, areas that they focus on. But what I found by being blessed enough to come in at, these A-class property levels is there's a whole world of niche investments that I haven't even touched on. So I'm excited to get to know the inner workings and more interested to know how gentlemen such as yourself getting started make deals happen, because those are the boots on the ground, and those are that's the best way to cut your teeth, is to learn from the ground up. Whereas I was able to cut the learning curve because I had a buy-in. Let's say you guys are going to do it the old-fashioned way. You're going to scrap your way to it. But I got a feeling, just based on what I've seen in the last month or so since speaking with Graham, you guys are going to do just fine. And you're in great company, because everybody I've met at City Plat is fucking amazing, to be honest.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that encouragement. That's awesome to hear. I think I'm fortunate enough to have been introduced to commercial real estate, and it's been a massive blessing in my life. And I think a great way for, anybody who's listening to get started in it, one way is to do brokerage. That's how I got started. That's how Jesse's getting started. Mm-hmm. You don't make a lot of money in the first year or two, but if you can get past those first 2 years, you can learn a whole bunch. But yeah, I think there's two approaches to it, which kind of leads into one of the next questions. It kind of sounds like, from what you're telling me, you're almost more maybe you're a GP, but it sounds like you're acting kind of like an LP. You're a limited partner investing the funds. Tell us how that structure is with your business partner. Do you typically just invest the funds and then try to learn as much as possible? Or are you a GP active in managing these deals, or how are you guys doing that?
I always like to bring business deals and investments into my life that serve me in a manner that are true to who I am as a person. And I am a hands-off kind of guy. So yeah, more LP in terms of the way I approach it. And without disclosing too much information, just for sensitivity's sake, I'll share that, yes, there's ownership stakes. So it's not just an investor with a return on investment. We're doing this to have equity. We're doing this to build, long-term net worth. And we're also looking to hedge some of our, our taxes. So it's a three-pronged approach. And then the education part, right? So you're getting exactly what you need by brokeraging, deals, because you're putting yourself in the room. You're adding value where otherwise you wouldn't be considered to have value, right? So my value is my capital. And in the wrong place, that can be a weakness, right? Because, this guy's going to give us our money and we're going to make money off of his money. And that's pretty industry standard. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Some people just want to return on their money. Give me this many points, guaranteed, and do whatever you do. But for me, this was legacy building. This was generational wealth. This was taking my life to another level. So the only way that made sense for me was for me to be a partner and an owner. And I have the right person to make that happen with. That's not, again, something that's the norm in this business, but based on the story I've given you about my life and myself, these things just kind of present themselves for me this way. And I think it's because my intentions are pure, my approach is genuine, and there's limited, if any, bullshit when I approach a situation. And I think the universe and God saw fit to put myself and this person together so that we can add value to each other, not in just a business sense for these deals, but we've become very good friends and we've helped each other in tough situations. And not to sound hokey, I think, you know, that all ties into why such a good opportunity presented itself at just the right time. But I am entertaining other deals, other investment opportunities. But I got to be honest, boys, nothing's as sexy as ownership and cost segregation to me personally. I've seen some of these other deals with returns, and I'm just like, is it me? I'm not moved. You know, is something wrong with me? This is a good opportunity. But once you own and you're in that position, it's hard to just take a you know, percentage stake in a deal. So again, gift and a curse. You get in here, it's like you don't want to do anything that doesn't serve you to the same extent as, you know, the deals I'm in right now are. But very generous deals, solid deals with solid people. And for me, this is legacy building. So funny story, as someone with kids, Graham, I was in Chicago with the family and we decided to drive out to one of our properties. And we took about a 2.5 hour drive into the sticks in Illinois. And our property is actually bordered by a cornfield, right? So all the land in between, like Chicago and Iowa, is like one big cornfield. And we pull up to the place and it's this huge 100,000 square foot retail. And we go into the Ashley, because my wife and daughter have to use the bathroom, and my wife goes to use the bathroom and my daughter's jumping on one of the bunk beds. And I say, hey, you know, daddy and mommy are buying this building, right? And my daughter's 7 and she's 6 at the time. She's just jumping around the bed and, yeah, right. She tells me, yeah, right. And I'm like, what do you mean, yeah, right? And I go, daddy and mommy are going to buy this building. She goes, no, you're not, silly. And I said, well, honey, why do you think daddy and mommy can't buy this building? And she goes, because it's too much money, silly. And this is a 6-year-old who has no idea what the value of money is. But somehow they connected that this big building was too expensive for mommy and daddy to buy. This was an inherent belief she had. Nobody told her, she doesn't know shit about real estate, but this was the belief she had. And boy, how proud I felt at that moment. Like, I'm gonna be able to tell my kids that we own buildings. And bro, I can't tell you, that feeling, Graham, you're gonna get it soon enough. Oh, it's a hell of a feeling. It's a hell of a feeling. And get used to it. Get used to it.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool.
And
There's
just
nothing.
by the time you decide to have kids, you'll have some buildings for them.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's nothing more important than family, in my opinion. So, you know, making your kids and your wife proud is like, there's nothing better than that. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, man, that was an exciting day. I'll never forget. And, you know, while it was just a passing moment for her, I remember it like it was a movie. I could just switch to it at any time. And that's the inspiration for me to say, you know what? You are capable. You do deserve this too. And let's go get it. Let's keep going. Let's not let this momentum, you know, die or fizzle out. Let's keep building on it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One thing we wanted to get into is, you know, we connected via social media. And when I came across your profile, you know, you do a very good job with your social media, kind of just portraying who you are. Like, I feel like I know you already. That's one cool thing about social media. We're talking now, but I've seen your videos and stuff. So I feel like I knew you prior. What are you doing, I guess, or what made you decide to kind of go hard on social media and build the personal brand that you have?
Sure. At Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins, I happened to be tapped on the shoulder on the second day, and some guy was like, hey, you want to be my partner? Because, you know, the event got broken up into teams for the remainder of the event. And I said, yeah, sure. And it was this guy, and we were just having a good old time, and 2 of the boys, and we start sharing information and a lot of similarities, even though he's Canadian. He's got a huge social media following. He just wrote a book. He got in trouble as a 17-year-old and had to go to rehab. Instead of prison there, they have rehab in a true civilized society, right? God bless Canada. And he goes, dude, you're not on social media. You need to be on social media, because I told him, about Real Mentors and what I wanted to do to make impact. And I had been off social media for 6 years, ironically enough. So this is December 22. Long story longer, the guy turns out to be Dan Martell, who, I don't know if you follow Dan on social media, but Dan is kind of a big deal. He's a hell of a human being, an amazing coach, and he just so happened to be my partner at Date with Destiny, unbeknownst to me. I didn't Google him till I got home, and I texted him after that, and I'm like, Dan, thanks for being so humble. You're kind of a big deal. I didn't even know. And we just laughed about it, and we've become, buddies since. And he was the inspiration for me getting back on social media. And I actually restarted my Instagram page in December of 2022. And I was just posting pictures of my kids and this event or that event, or the white squirrel that trolls my neighborhood. I have an albino squirrel, so I post an occasional picture of that. So the normal Instagram that I left 6 years ago, that's what it was. Post pictures and whatever. Now, unbeknownst to me, Instagram is a marketing tool. And so is all of social media. So come July, which we actually just celebrated the first anniversary, I had a speaking engagement. Prior to going to Date with Destiny, my wife filmed on her phone. It was me speaking to an audience at an old community college I graduated from, just giving an inspiring message to some of the youth men's group. And 2 days after I posted a 20-second snippet of that video, which was already 6 months old, but I know that this is the platform, this is my purpose now, I want to go help others. I finally post this post in July that I took in November, my wife took. Post a 20-second clip. 2 days later, a kid emails me, DMs me. He goes, oh man, that video, your voice, what you were saying, it just really resonated with me. I did an edit. I hope you don't mind. Can I send it to you? And that is how I found my editor. Just like that, with like 100 social media followers, because I had deleted everybody I had. So you tell me, or try to convince me, that when you step into your purpose, God doesn't roll out the red carpet for you. And I will tell you, you don't know what you're talking about, because I, with less than 100 followers and no reason for that video to take off, it garnered a couple thousand views, found its way across the world, and the editor reached out to me. And that is how it started. And within a month, we were doing a video a day, which we started this call, and you guys told me your goal was to do a video a day. It took me about a month to ramp up to that point. At that point, it was every few days, or when I got comfortable getting in front of the camera. And then I just made the commitment to creating enough content where we could post every single day. And we've kept to that promise for almost a year now. So July 17th was the 1 year anniversary of that post. July 20th or 19th was when he returned that DM message to me. And here we are, 1,000 posts later, a hell of a following, in the tens of thousands, making impact by the day, getting beautiful messages back from people. And more importantly than anything else, being my authentic self. So thank you for that compliment, Graham. That is all I'm trying to do. There's no monetary incentive for me on social. I am not looking for anything. I am spending my own money to get it edited. I'm spending my own money to be in the studio right now, because I'm blessed enough to have it. And I also believe in myself enough to build my personal brand. So the goal is to build my personal brand. Sean Martin, speaker, mentor, and then the Real Mentors podcast and eventually curriculum will help to serve the youth of inner cities, particularly Black and brown, starting in New York City and then moving its way throughout the country, to just plant seeds of hope, the power of dreaming and thinking big, financial literacy, and more importantly than anything else I've realized is letting people know that they are worthy and that they are capable, because there's not many real life examples where we come from and maybe where you come from. So it's on you to be the light, first and foremost for your family and the people that love you, but then you've got enough in reserve to give more. Most of us do. We're just reluctant leaders. And I just say, you know what, screw this. I'm tired of playing small. And the feedback that I got almost instantly from the social media posts just encouraged me to do more. And now it's to a point where people see it and they're thinking we've been doing this for years. when in reality, we just crossed the year threshold, which is truly exciting because I can only imagine what that's going to look like in another year or two and how much impact we're going to be able to make. We've also got the book that I'm writing called Beyond the Bronx. That's going to be out in November, definitely by the end of the year. And that's going to narrate my story, how we got here, and then more importantly, some of the lessons that I learned along the way, taking the bumps and bruises, so that people coming up like myself don't necessarily have to take them, or they can at least heed my advice and use it as they see fit.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry, I thought you might have a question. That's so cool.
You're fine.
I mean, yeah, your story is inspiring, and that's really cool to hear that you did that in a year.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for about a year as well, and I don't know. I haven't quite figured out what I'm not doing right, but I'm just growing very slowly.
Yours is solid. Trust me. I don't need to blow smoke in your eyes. You have a presence. Mm-hmm. You're solid. Jesse, I can't remember too much. I know that Graham has more of the stuff that I'm seeing. If I'm mistaken, that's the way it is. You have a presence. Just give it time, bro. Give it time. There's no such thing as an overnight success. I admittedly got swallowed into the fake followers and the fake engagement, listening to some young people that were trying to sell me marketing packages. And then that actually does you disservice with the algorithm. So we pulled back. We eliminated as many fake bot accounts as we could. You know, my account took a hit from 250,000 to like 40 something thousand. We're currently, neighboring on around 50,000 organic, which is still nothing to sneeze at. But, there's people on there with millions of followers. I can guarantee you it's a lot of bullshit. If you want true traction, you've got to keep showing up every day, keep doing what's real to you. And even if you got 200 followers that are real and authentic and you're serving them, that's a valuable 200 followers as opposed to a 2 million, which looks good on paper, but has no substance. So just keep doing what you're doing, brother. You guys are doing great.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny because right before this, I got a message I was talking about with Jesse about, and it was somebody was like, "Hey, pay me $75 and we'll get you thousands of followers." I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's all bots, and they'll claim 7 which ways from Sunday that they can get you organic followings. The only way that I know that you can get organic following and create a real social media presence is content. And if you want to market, you're going to need real marketing dollars with real people that are paying attention to trends, shifting videos, redirecting your 3-second intros. I mean, there's a science behind it. Anybody who's listening right now, Day Trading Attention, Gary Vee's new book, really speaks to social media and how you can use it as a tool to accelerate your own personal brand. But there's no shortcuts to it. And the only way to know what works is to actually post it. And if it works, then you reverse engineer what works and you try to recreate that in other forms. And there's no guarantee that that'll work. So social media it's a headache, but it's worth it.
That's pretty much
just keep showing up.
Yeah, that's pretty much the advice that Rich Summers gave us. He was like, guys, just post for 90 days. It doesn't all have to be perfect content. It doesn't all have to be super, super valuable. And that's kind of what I've been focused on. It's not all been value. I've done a lot of value stuff as much as I can. And, sprinkling some other stuff that I'm, interested in or just comes across the plate. But just getting out there and to see what works for the first 90 days. So I'm still in that first 90 days.
That's all right, brother. Yeah. Those are exciting and scary.
Yeah, they are.
Now it's just automatic. We come to the studio. I have 6 podcasts lined up, 3 virtual, 2 in person, whatever. 2 and 2, 3 and 3, whatever it is. But I dedicate one day every week or two to just doing this and creating as much content. Before, I would just set up a tripod, shoot in the backyard, wherever. It didn't matter. But if you're shooting a podcast also, you might want to have a camera off to the side filming yourself, a high quality camera, because you're going to say something. Even though this features me or the guest more, when you're a guest on other people's podcasts, you're creating content. So the great Gary Vee also says, you want to create content, just have a camera follow you around during the day. That's content. Because you're going to say, do, or show something that's going to be of value and get people engaged.
That's awesome.
That's a question I had for you was what's the engagement difference on if you I see a lot of Instagram stories that you do where you're just walking around with your family and stuff, and then you might drop something valuable, and then you have a polished post necessarily. I don't know if polish is the right word there, but what's the best engagement tool that you've seen for posts and stuff like that? What's the best engagement?
Sure. authenticity, rawness. I just recently shared my story about having been in prison, which now it sounds, and just me looking at myself on the feedback monitor here, it sounds like I've been telling this story for years. But the truth is, I've been telling it to myself, and why I shouldn't share it with the world. And when I decided to share it with the world and I created posts that spoke about it, the relief was amazing, because I had held this shame and this not wanting to share that I built this amazing life, and what are my neighbors going to think, and what are these people going to think? What are the people in the commercial room going to think if they know this about me? And it was liberating to just be honest, be truthful. More people see value in what it is that I have to offer now. So I'm sharing myself with the world. And in the reels, we're sharing it in a polished, high quality format, which I see most people, when you're starting out, you're going to just talk to the camera and do the captions. And that's all good and well. I have, through chance, met this amazing editor across the world. So I'm taking advantage, and it's costing me money, but I think we're creating something unique that draws people to the message, which is more important than the actual production of the message. Because you've got to create emotion, right? Change and lasting change is created through emotion. And our videos look to invoke emotion that you speaking into a camera without music or cues or animations just doesn't do. We're living in a world where you literally have 3 seconds to catch their attention. You better say something poignant. And unfortunately, it gravitates more towards something stupid or entertaining than meaningful with today's audience. But what am I going to do? I can't change the world, so I changed my approach on how to reach the world. So it's a matter of those two things. The reels, polished, as you said, message, gem, there's a theme there, but it's usually the result of me just creating candid content. And then there's me sharing my life and my stories on a daily basis, so that you can see I'm not full of shit. When I tell you I'm all about this family and that I brought freedom through success, I want you to see that I can take a walk with my family at 4 p.m. on any given weekday if I choose to, because I created that life for myself, and you can too. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but you can create whatever life you want to create. You just have to have a clear enough vision for it.
That's awesome. That's so cool. We're getting close to an hour here. So, one of the last things I wanted to ask you about was your Real Mentors program. Tell us about that, because I think that's pretty cool work you're doing.
So years ago, I formed a corporation called Real Mentors. Stands for Real Examples Altering Lives. And myself, I consider myself to be a real mentor, a reluctant one, but one nonetheless. And I am now committed to shining a light on people that are working in the community as mentors and leaders. They're the boots on the ground. They have the nonprofits. They're spending the afternoons. They're seeing the real life trials and obstacles that these kids are facing. And they've dedicated their life to bettering the lives of others. So ultimately, I have a gift, and that's the gift of connecting with other human beings and telling stories. And if I can orate and share their story of how they're impacting lives and garner more attention for their programs and hopefully more money so that they can do more good in the world, then that's how I see myself in this industry. It's shining a light on community leaders and nonprofits that have their boots on the ground and they're making change. Ultimately, I would love to have a curriculum which would then be instituted in programs like that, and also throughout schools, which teaches inner city youth the power of dreaming and thinking big, financial literacy, relationship capital and networking, and just all around open-mindedness. Because wherever we come from, no matter what the financial outlook is, we all have a narrow view of the world, some more than others. And unfortunately, when you come from extreme poverty, there's a very narrow view of the world. So I'm looking to shed some light on that in those particular communities. First, by shining light on people that are already doing the work. And then in turn, I'll meet the right people, get into the right rooms, and be able to foster my own program that I can then put into different places, different nonprofits, and ultimately schools as well, to teach them the things that school, quite frankly, doesn't desire to teach them, but without knocking school, because school is still probably the best way out of poverty for most people. So it's a necessary thing, but with today's instant gratification culture, I just want people to be clear. You're never going to get rich working a job for someone else. And everybody's heard that before. But I think they need to be reminded of it, because if you take a job, no matter how well paying, and you have a feeling of emptiness because you're not fulfilling that true desire that you have, that's an indication that maybe you could be doing something different. And people just aren't aware of that, or like we said earlier, they give up on that hope. And I'm here to reinvigorate that hope that anything's possible. And you don't need to know exactly how you're going to get there, but you have to believe that you're going to get there. That's paramount to everything else.
And I think that's so important. You know, people who are successful, not all of them take the time to give back. And it's really inspiring what you're doing to actually, you know, you could just be chilling and, you know, just hanging out with your family and staying quiet, but you're going out of your way, like you said, to put a message out there and try to give people hope. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. I was chilling for a while and it was self-destructive. So I decided it's time to stop chilling. It's time to start getting busy. You know, first the transformation was with myself, and then the relationship with my family, and then the business came, you know, a far third behind those two things.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, what's the best way for our audience to connect with you? Where do you want people to go to try to just connect with you and talk? Instagram or email or what?
Sure. Our most notable presence is on Instagram, The Sean Martin, TheSeanMartin. You can also go to theseanmartin.com, SeanMartinSpeaker.com. We've got the Beyond the Bronx book coming out at the end of the year. We've also got a website set up for that, beyondthebronx.com. And just keep following us. We've got the YouTube channel set up. We're launching the Real Mentors podcast on September 1st, and that'll be in long form to go in tandem with what we're doing in the short form space on Instagram and also currently on YouTube as well. We do have TikTok, although admittedly I have never been on it nor desire to be on it. It does exist, I've heard, and we're on that platform as well. So you can find us on any of those mediums. Awesome.
Well, yeah, go follow Sean on all of his platforms. Shoot him a message, tell him you got inspired today. And we're thankful you came on here. I appreciate it, Sean. And yeah, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you having me on and giving me the platform.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thanks, boys. Have a great afternoon.